So good to be with you this morning. I am the Reverend William Levwood, affectionately known as Rev Lev. My pronouns are he and him, and I have the great privilege of being the minister here at Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I want to remind you, if you're in person, to silence your phones, and whether you're joining us in person or online, we'll begin, as we do every Sunday, centering ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath together. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that one day, together, we shall all know full justice.
I feel the warmth of her hand in mine. Ooh, I hear laughter in the rain, walking hand in hand with the one I love. Ooh, how I love the rainy days and the happy way I feel inside.
Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Connie Diamant, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. If you aren't new to Accotink, look around. Do you see people you haven't seen before or haven't seen in a while? These people like you and want to meet you. Help us live up to our mission to be a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home for all by reaching out and making a connection. By visiting the congregation, newcomers are in a transition moment, and people in transition are more likely and more open to be to new friendships. That means your new best friend may be here this morning, and this is your chance to get to know them. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour immediately after this service. We're so delighted you've decided to come to us today.
This Sunday, we will light our chalice with these words from Nelson Mandela. No form of violence can ever be excused in a society that wishes to call itself decent.
So next Sunday, the choir is going to be singing songs by Stevie Wonder. That's all you need to know, right? Connie actually asked for more complex choir music. She doesn't remember doing that, but I remember it, and that's how we ended up singing Stevie Wonder's music. You can blame it all on Connie. Actually, that's not true. That's not true at all. Scott Larson purchased this year's auction sermon and asked me to talk about UU bumper stickers or how we can better promote Unitarian Universalism. And that led me to writing a sermon about Max Martin's melodic math, the pop composer, and the genius, the wonder of Stevie. Then the following Sunday, we have a pulpit swap. That means I'm at Davies UU congregation and their minister, Reverend Kirk Freeman, Pastor Kirk, will be here, preaching about faith and hope and love and zombies. That's right. Faith and hope and love and zombies. We'll end the month with a service celebrating Transgender Day of Visibility with a message that I promise will transform how you think about yourself. And I mean your capital S self. And then we have Easter Sunday and Passover. We also have the Tuesday during Passover, we have a Passover Seder. So I encourage you to come to that. On that Easter Sunday and today, we're going to be talking about the welcome table and paradise here on earth and the beloved community. And today, we're also going to be talking about cannibalism. I mean, obviously, right? The welcome table, beloved community, and cannibalism.
No fancy style. style at the welcome table. Gonna sing at the welcome table one of these days.
Our Time for All Ages this morning is a Dorothea Sophia story, which is some stories that I've been writing this year. I haven't done one in several months. This one is called Dorothea Sophia and the Soup Kitchen. My name is Dorothea Sophia. Weird name, I know. Both of my parents are UU ministers, so I was named after two famous Unitarian Universalists, Dorothea Dix and Sophia Lyon Foss. Stepping out of the story for a minute, Dorothea Dix, what she did was transform how we treated mental illness in this country. You'll see why that's an important thing for me to bring up later. Okay, I was named after Dorothea Dix and Sophia Lyon Foss, but you can just call me Dot. So one weekend, my dad wanted me to help out at the soup kitchen that our UU congregation hosts sometimes. I didn't really want to, but he really didn't give me much of a choice, which wasn't very UU of him, if you ask me. Where's all the democratic process he's always raving about when I need it? I felt bad that I didn't want to go. I know we should help people out when they need a helping hand, especially as UUs who say that we want everyone to flourish, which means, first of all, not die, like from starving. And more than that, everyone should be happy and peaceful and stuff. The only good thing is that my friends were also going to be there helping out. So first, when we get to church, there's a lot of prep work to do. I admit it's hard to stay focused because I really just want to disappear to a corner of the church and talk with my friends. But the adults keep pulling us back to set tables and chop carrots and celery, stuff like that. I suggest that we put some rosemary in the chicken noodle soup. I love rosemary. At first, someone scrunches up their nose and tells me, that's not a good idea. But then another adult pipes up and says they think it's an excellent idea. The adults argue about it for a while. The one who thinks it's a good idea is really playful and gets the other person smiling and laughing. We're making multiple pots of chicken noodle soup, so in the end we add rosemary to some and not to others. It feels good that they even considered my suggestion. I guess UUs really do use the democratic process, just not my dad, the minister. Then the people show up, and they're so happy that we've got soup and salad and bread and cookies for dessert. With all of their smiling, I can't help but smile myself. Well, most of them are smiling. There is one mother who is not smiling. She's got 3 unruly children she is trying to corral, and she is stressed. I remember how the adult joked with the other adult when they were arguing over the rosemary, and I had over. I get really goofy with the youngest child, pretending I'm flying around like a vulture and that I'm going to eat her up, but with a big smile on my face, so she knows I'm just playing around. It works. I hear the mother sigh and look over at her. She smiles at me, a smile that's got relief and joy and surprise and still some weariness too. Later, when we're all sitting and eating together, the littlest kid in the family scrunches up her face, just like the church lady did earlier. I realized she got the soup with the rosemary, and I start to feel bad. The mom, though, she reaches over, takes the soup, and starts telling a story about how her grandmother always put rosemary in her soup when she was a kid. Her voice, as she tells the story between spoonfuls of soup, is all sweet-like and quiet, not grumpy and loud and stressed like she was before. And all of a sudden, the little girl reaches for the bowl and starts shoveling spoonfuls into her mouth, mmming and ahhing the whole time. I head to the kitchen and come back with another bowl of the rosemary chicken noodle soup for the mom. And as I'm handing it to her, we share a smile. And I know that as long as we keep showing up for each other, everything is going to be all right. Amen.
My name is Pat Bangs, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a relatively new member to AUC, at least for many of you. I've joined via Zoom almost 6 years ago in April 2020, and as you all know what was going on in April 2020, it was in the midst of the pandemic. And I would come online and go to the services and go to the coffee hour online afterwards, but it was many months before I met anyone in person and could sign the membership book. But even then it was clear how devoted AAUC members are to social justice activities, something I value. It is a major reason why I continue to support AAUC during our annual pledge drive. Frankly, though, for a newcomer back in 2020, the overwhelming choices, or at least back when we got back and saw each other, at least the overwhelming choices to act for justice through AAUC activities were intimidating. While my participation grew over the years, it doesn't come close to the time and effort many of you here constantly contribute to monthly meal packs, the yearly hypothermia shelter, the monthly contributions to an array of social justice organizations. This month it's NAMI. The voter turnout efforts, our sister church in India, True Accotink LGBTQIA plus community with their presentations and other things that they are supporting, wonderful movie nights. And since January of 2025, AUC, as AUC has done when needed in the past, our efforts increased to let the present administration know through protests, writing campaigns, that there's one planned today after the service, emails and phone calls to legislators, state and federal, plus economic resistance, and so much more. We are talking about our concerns for the preservation of democracy. You can read our recent resolution in faithful defiance of authoritarianism on the AUUC webpage. And several AAUC members are shopping, among things being done, several AAUC members are shopping for and delivering food to immigrant families, among many other things. I encourage everyone to join our advocacy group email list. It is a satisfying tool for channeling outrage. Alerts sent to the advocacy group sometimes only take minutes to send. Early on, I joined the Racial Justice Committee, now part of the Social Justice Committee. I was nudged into training as an AAUC advocate to voice Virginians Organized for Interfaith and Community Engagement. AAUC is one of the founding members of that organization. It has resulted in my first ever meetings to lobby legislators. What has given me the most satisfaction recently is attending meetings and support groups as Accotink takes action defending our democracy activities developed. I was sure I would never participate in any demonstration, not due to fear as much as age. I'm in my 80th year. For me, my stamina is not what it used to be. But I did find I could contribute in a way that was rewarding to me, relaying details, communicating details of protest actions and resources through the e-newsletter, magnetic boards, and other communication tools. I found my writer-editor background before I retired could be put to good use. And slowly, I did dip my toes into attending some local demonstrations. I am definitely an introvert and not a demonstrative person. But I credit AUUC with both accepting and challenging me. I have grown in these past half dozen years, and I have AUUC to thank. AUUC has been a gift for me and can be for all of us, but we need to also give back. So if you haven't already, please pledge, but also consider exploring the AUUC social action activities that might beckon to you.
Please give a warm welcome to Alan Gajadar. Alan Gajadar is on the board of directors for NAMI Northern Virginia and other nonprofits where he advocates for those in need of care, for the powerless, and for the voiceless in our community. He is a software program manager and a longtime resident of Arlington, where he helped raise his 3 children and lives a spiritually focused life. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello. I'm Alan Gajadar. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of NAMI Northern Virginia, part of America's largest grassroots mental health organization, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. NAMI exists to advocate for mental health resources in a society where mental health is often not prioritized, where there's stigma and a lack of understanding or even awareness of what mental health entails, what mental health challenges look like, how to help, and who can help. NAMI's professional staff and trained volunteers serve Arlington, Fairfax, and Loudoun counties, and the cities of Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax. Over 2 million people. Every year we touch thousands of lives, offering critical mental health support, stigma-breaking education, and advocacy for families and peers. So that may raise a question. What is a peer? At NAMI, a peer is someone who lives with mental illness. We offer peer support groups where we believe peers can help other peers by listening and supporting and offering their experience of recovery. We also offer family support groups and programs to help families learn coping skills and empower them to become advocates for their family members as they navigate the behavioral health system and attempt to cope with their illness. I got involved with NAMI when a close family member faced significant issues with depression. I didn't know what to do or how to help them, and it was also very devastating emotionally to me and the family. I joined a family support group where I heard other parents facing similar experiences share their challenges and successes. I also learned about available behavioral health resources for someone with their diagnosis and gained a better understanding of mental health conditions. My relative's story and the support I received from NAMI motivated me to get personally involved to do what I can to ensure other parents and their children, and everyone in the community, have support when facing mental health challenges. This is why I joined the board, to ensure the organization can continue to provide support, education, and awareness of mental health challenges, and to work to destigmatize mental health challenges. Thank you all for your support today.
The reading today is Perhaps the World Ends Here by Joy Harjo. And this is a particularly meaningful reading for me because it talks about the center of my home, which is our kitchen table. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared and set on a table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at its corners and they scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it, we make women. At this table we gossip, recall enemies, and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put our arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth at this table, and we have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite.
There is a famous short story by science fiction and fantasy writer Ursula K. Le Guin, one of my favorite authors. It's about a utopia called Omelas. Omelas is glorious. There's a catch, though. In a basement, somewhere in Omelas, there's a single room without a window. It's a small room with only enough space for one child trapped there behind the locked door. Once in a while, the door opens and food and water is thrust in. The child, we're told, hasn't always lived there in the room, can remember sunlight and a mother's voice. At times, the child cries out as the food is delivered, pitifully. "I will be good," the child says. "Please let me out. I will be good." The child is naked and emaciated with festering sores all over their body. And we're told that this is the cost of all the joy and prosperity of the utopia of Omelas. This one child left to suffer in cruel squalor. I'll quote from the story. "The people of Omelas all know that the child has to be there, that their happiness, the beauty of their city, the tenderness of their friendships, the health of their children, the wisdom of their scholars, the skill of their makers, even the abundance of their harvest and the kindly weathers of their skies depend wholly on this child's abominable misery." In the story, the child serves two functions. First, the child is there to make us believe in the utopia. Le Guin breaks the fourth wall for a while in the story and tells us that we can't believe, we need this child because we can't believe in a world, a beautiful utopian world without cruel and unnecessary suffering. Child is also there to illustrate a conundrum. Do the people of Omelas accept this cruelty? And we're told that they do. That some people never go to the basement. They just know the child is there suffering. Others, usually young people, go to see the child. They leave upset, tears running down their face or fists clenched in outrage. But over time, they realize or rationalize that even if the child were freed from the dungeon, after all that deprivation, the child wouldn't be able to enjoy a free life. Or perhaps they think to themselves, the child was deficient to begin with and is better off in that little room. Yes, that's it, they decide. And they go on with their lives, abundant in cakes and carnivals, abundant in hope and joy. But there are some, a precious few, who can't accept this arrangement. The ones who walk away from Omelas, which is the title of the story. Now, this story is usually described as a thought experiment, but I think that's wrong. Calling it a thought experiment implies that it's just a game, a theoretical what if. What if we lived in a utopia where the cost of that utopia was the suffering of others, even if only the suffering of one person, one child? And the implication of calling it a thought experiment, the implication, the assumption, is that we, the readers, will all find this abhorrent, that we, each and every one of us, would be among the ones who walk away from Omelas. But the truth is, it's not a theoretical thought experiment, not at all. Most of us, I think, wouldn't say we live in a utopia. There's still sickness and fear and stress, the death of loved ones. But compared to the many people in this country and throughout the world who live mired in a poverty that greatly resembles that child suffering in that basement, I would say we live in a utopia indeed. And that it doesn't need to be this way, except for the fact that, like Le Guin theorizes, we cannot imagine a world without this cruel suffering brought on by inequality, injustice, and oppression. Except for the fact that on some level, we believe, maybe in the basement of our minds, we believe this is the cost of our prosperity, our joy. I want to put forth that this is not a theoretical thought experiment. We live in Omelas. We live in Omelas and we don't walk away. No. We're like the people in Omelas who learn to accept this reality as unavoidable. Even perhaps to rationalize it as good and right and just, because the suffering child, all the suffering children and their parents and grandparents somehow deserve the suffering. Now, I know that we may not have caused this wealth disparity ourselves. More on that later. But I believe we need to remind ourselves, in the prophetic words of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, not all are guilty, but all are responsible. We need to ask ourselves, to what degree do we buy into a system predicated on the idea, the foundational idea, that for some to flourish and thrive, others need to suffer? That is the underbelly of Omelas. And it is the underbelly of these, our United States of America. And I think even if we succeed at rejecting this foundational idea that for some to flourish and thrive, others need to live in squalor and deprivation, we need to ask ourselves, to what degree am I complicit in the ongoing, cruel and unnecessary suffering of millions? Not all are guilty, but all are responsible. In his book, Poverty by America, Matthew Desmond documents, this is the more on that later part, about how we benefit, documents how affluent families benefit from tax breaks on their mortgages and college savings plans, leaving less revenue for programs that serve those in greater need. How we as consumers seek out convenience and low prices with little regard for the labor abuses that make them possible. And most notably, homeowners in choice neighborhoods and suburbs defend exclusionary zoning that bar affordable housing, keeping low-income families at a safe distance from their streets and schools. We have those kinds of zoning exclusions. Here in Fairfax County, it's one of the things that Voice, that organization that we're a part of that Pat mentioned, is working to change. These zoning laws foreclose the upward mobility that comes with economic and racial integration and perpetuates the harms that accompany concentrated poverty. Keeps the poverty all in one place. And I want to point out, as is pointed out in a New York Times article about the book, that Democratic voters talk a good game, but are just as likely, or according to one study, even more likely than Republicans to oppose new housing developments in their own backyards. Damningly, Desmond writes, perhaps we are not so polarized after all. Maybe above a certain income level, we are all segregationists. I'm going to change tacks for a moment and tell you about many years ago when I saw the movie Cloud Atlas. Anybody remember that movie? Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, playing multiple characters. That movie revealed something to me, a deep and disturbing truth that has haunted me ever since. The movie follows several different storylines, jumping from place to place through different historical eras, including future eras yet to happen. This includes a storyline that takes place in the year 2144 in Neo-Seoul, presumably a future Seoul, South Korea. In the movie, we're shown clones who work nonstop hours in the service industry, like at a fast food restaurant. These clones, these women, have no freedom. They're treated with disdain and abuse by both their customers and their employers, including being sexually harassed and abused. Now, one of the first scenes in the movie is of enslaved Africans in brutal conditions on a plantation in the Chatham Islands in the South Pacific. It isn't hard to see the connection. But the horror of this oppressive servitude is graphically illustrated in the scenes in 2144 when the clones, after their miserable lives of servitude are over, when their bodies are worn out despite still being quite young, I would guess they're younger than me, are fed into a machine, not that I'm saying I'm quite young, but are fed into a machine that turns them into food that is, unbeknownst to them, served to the other clones. These people are being cannibalized. They are being cannibalized twice. First through exploitation, and then literally when their bodies are fed to the remaining clones to keep the system going. The next part of the film is in the far future, but it's a far future where human civilization has fallen apart, where humans are living in a wasteland, barely able to meet their most basic needs for survival. And in this desolate future, some of the humans turn to cannibalism, just as some humans turned to cannibalism in our prehistory. And what struck me, thinking about that prehistory, what stayed with me all these years is the realization that we're still cannibals. We are still cannibals. We've just made our cannibalism more palatable. No pun intended. Instead of fattening other humans up for the slaughter as we do with pigs and cows, we take bites out of our fellow humans throughout their lives, robbing them not only of monetary wealth, but stealing their time, their health, their ability to experience even a moment of peace while they struggle to make ends meet. In addition, there are health disparities based in income, based in poverty and in race. They don't only decrease the quality of life, but cause people to die much earlier, which impacts whole communities. Remember, we concentrate poverty in ghettos. It causes whole communities to end up tending loved ones at much younger ages and losing loved ones at much younger ages. When I was in seminary in the Bay Area, I learned that life expectancy in West Oakland, which is predominantly African American and low income, is 73 years old. 10 years less than the life expectancy of 83 years in the Berkeley Flats, and 20 years less than the life expectancy of 93 years old in the highly affluent Berkeley Hills. We are taking bites out of each other, taking years off other people's lives. And that is the source, part of the source of our prosperity. That is the cost. To riff off of and adapt a song lyric from Taylor Swift, do you see our covert cannibalism disguised as capitalism? It's from Antihero, I believe. Yeah. We have not walked away from Omelas. We continue to profit off the bodies, the lives of other human beings. We continue to practice covert cannibalism. So I want to take us to the beautiful poem that Connie read. The poet Joy Harjo, a Muskogee Creek poet, our nation's first Indigenous American to serve as our National Poet Laureate from 2019 through 2022, writes, "The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. We must eat to live." But that doesn't mean we need to be taking bites out of our fellow human beings, literally taking 20 years of life away from them. Our prosperity doesn't need to come at the expense of others. I implore us to open our imaginations to a different possibility. Joy Harjo also writes, "It is here at the kitchen table that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it, we make women. I believe at minimum, we want to teach our children that being human means not eating other human beings, not exploiting and taking years off the lives of other human beings." Joy Harjo writes, "The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on." The question, I believe, is how do we share the gifts of the earth? You minister, Reverend John Burens, in the book A House for Hope. Our pledge theme is Building a House for Hope. In that book, he shares about a time when he was asked to address a congregation exploring concerns about global hunger. And the congregation decided to raise money and consciousness simultaneously by holding what's called a hunger banquet. He describes the banquet, writing, "Since we live in a world of more than 6 billion people, where at least 2 billion live on the equivalent of $2 a day or less, a third of those present at the banquet were served only small portions of rice. Others received rice and beans and a vegetable. Only about 1 out of 10 people were served what most of us would call a full meal, which included dessert. And only a few people, 2 or 3 people out of 100, got a gourmet meal that evening." This is how we share the gifts of the earth, but it is not how I want to share the gifts of the earth. And I'm confident it's not how you want to share the gifts of the earth. This is not what I want to teach my child about what it means to be human. And I know it's not what you want to teach your children. We want to be able to sing with integrity that we're going to sit at the welcome table. The welcome table, where, to quote Joy Harjo again, "Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children, laughing with us at our poor, falling down selves as we put ourselves back together, once again at the welcome table that has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun, not just for some of us, but for all of us." Burens continues writing, "At the core of authentic religion is the spirit of hospitality. All 3 Abrahamic faiths recognize this. The tent of Abraham is open on all 4 sides to welcome the stranger from anywhere," say the rabbis. Burens writes, "If we're going to sit at the welcome table, it's about having the faith that together we can feed the many who are hungry. Because just as Jesus is said to have fed 5,000 with 2 fishes and a few loaves of bread with plenty left over, We need to operate out of an awareness of abundance, not a model of scarcity. Jesus spread a welcome table for all people, and we are called to do the same. Now, another name for the welcome table is the beloved community. According to the King Center, the memorial institution founded by Coretta Scott King to further the goals of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share in the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood, siblinghood, neighborhood, friendship. The welcome table of the beloved community is the closest we will ever get to heaven on earth. And I believe that it's how we're called to share the gifts, not the wealth, the gifts of the earth. And I believe it's the legacy we want to give to our children and our grandchildren. Also in that same book that I mentioned earlier, House for Hope, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, writes this, that we can come to know this world as paradise when our hearts and souls are reborn through the arduous and tender task of living rightly with one another and the earth. We can come to know this world as paradise when our hearts and souls are reborn through the arduous and tender task of living rightly with one another and the earth, not when we leave the child in the basement of Omelas. Generosity, she writes, generosity and mutual care are the pathways into knowing that paradise is right here and right now. The welcome table of the beloved community is the closest we will ever get to heaven on earth, and it's close enough. So let's make sure that our kitchen table is the welcome table of the beloved community. Because the world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners, scrape their knees under it. It is here at the table, that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. Our dreams put their arms around our children, laughing with us at our poor falling down selves as we put ourselves back together once again at the table that has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. We have given birth at this table. We have prepared our parents for burial here at this table, at this welcome table. We can sing with joy and with sorrow, pray of suffering and remorse. At a welcome table, we can give thanks. We can truly, authentically give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table where we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. I do hope that that sermon acts as a wake-up call, but not that it depresses us. I hope it inspires us to deepen our commitment to those roots of fertile ground where compassion is our guide, where instead of offering up the lives of others through exploitation and covert cannibalism, we offer up our lives in service of peace and love and justice and true joy. And with that, Dale Howell is going to give us a pledge update as we work to build a house for hope.
Thank you, Rev Lev. I do have to say this is my beloved community, and I am so proud to be a member of this congregation. With that, I want to talk about the pledge update. We are currently at 47 pledges, 163,970. Average per pledge unit is about what we expected, 3,500, with 3 weeks since the pledge kickoff and 2 weeks left. We're 47% of the projected 100 pledges and 48% of the $350,000 goal. So we're making progress, but
You're very happy about this.
And thank you all that have pledged. To use a running analogy, which everything's running for me, slow out of the blocks, but striving for a strong finish. So, these last 2 weeks, let's make it happen. Our pledge ask was optimistic, but is still achievable with more than 100 members. That was the only part of the pledge that I will question is, we can't make our goal without at least 110 pledge units. And I'll get back to that more later, but if we don't make our goal, we have to cut the budget, and that's painful. I want to pivot for just a moment because one of the key responsibilities of the finance advisor is to make adjustments to the budget after completion of pledge, and that's working with the board, but I need to do a lot of the work behind the scenes to come up with options. There's other responsibilities, but I want to focus on that particular one for a moment. We can't pay 80% of our insurance policy. We can't pay 80% of fire suppression or the heat bill. You have to pay all of it. All of the service contracts and utilities are regularly reviewed, competed, or negotiated to get the best value. It's likely we already have the lowest price achievable on our non-labor costs, which are essentially a third of the budget. Which gets to the crux of budget cutting, our staff cost, which are 2/3 of the budget. This is the primary area where costs could be scalable, as it's possible to reduce staff hours by a percentage or to postpone salary or COLA increases. It's possible, but the last thing that we want to do. The board will do whatever is possible to retain our staff at the current levels, but we need to balance a budget, and they're two difficult and competing challenges. To even considering cuts to the staff is very painful to me, and let me tell you why. Brad and Howard, I love you too. But Brad's ability to perform anything and sound amazing, from Coltrane to Chopin, from Wicked to Annie DeFranco, and his work with the choir is wonderful. More than double the choir size over the last 2 years, and is spotlighting the strengths of various members. Wow, I just love it. It's worth coming to church for just the music.
That's why I come.
That's why. And Michelle, the animation of the stories for all ages is very engaging and entertaining. That is another thing that I just look forward to every week. She's masterful in the guidance of volunteers. She spends hours every week scripting lessons plans, increasing the number of children in youth classrooms, offering variety, and you can see them in the program today. And the involvement of youth acting out stories on Sunday. Who doesn't love that? I mean, all of that is remarkable. And then there's our spiritual leader. And Rev Lev has and continues to provide outstanding faith leadership during the emotional turmoil of the current political crisis. He delivers well-organized sermons. Today was an excellent example of that, based on in-depth study which provides practical and life-changing guidance. Shares messages that are both entertaining and meaningful. He has encouraged us to be more welcoming, which is a big part of why we have many new members and new pledge units. We are fortunate to have all three worship leaders, and meeting our pledge goal will help the board to retain them. Now, I will close by appealing to you to pledge what you can to help us close the gap. This plea is for all members, recent and long-timers. And I'm going to be very direct in this ask, because I've looked at what we have so far and what we have for pledges from members in past years, where there's some history, and come to a bottom line and we're $20,000 short. We can fill that $20,000 shortfall if 3/4 of the new members are able to pledge $100 a month. That's my ask. I'm not, going beyond that, not twisting any arms, but that is my ask, because I want to make sure that we retain our wonderful staff. If you have any questions on our budget or our pledge ask or any other sources of income except for the easement with the temple, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Please contact me on anything. I'm glad to share any and all budget details that you're interested in discussing. And I also want to give a shout out to Jean Seibel, that has been working with Julie, Chuck on the pledge. Gene's been key in our success today, and he's going to help us get this across the line. So he's going to be at the pledge table, and I'm going to sit at the pledge table, and please come and talk to me. Thank you.
Please rise now in body and spirit and join in our closing words. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words from David Bombau. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind our differences and raising our diversity, we honor the unity that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity. Now that we've gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world inspired to change our lives.